In this episode of Uncivil Society, we welcome Ami Dar, the founder and executive director of Idealist.org, the largest and most comprehensive employment and volunteer site for the nonprofit sector, and in my view, a major tentpole organization for nonprofits, philanthropy, and civil society. Ami is one of the leading voices of our sector, someone who sees the best in people, and someone I've known for about 30 years. His commitment to the people who do good work is vital to the nonprofit world, especially during times like these. Please remember to like and subscribe to this podcast. It really helps to support conversations like these. Here now, my interview with Ami Dar. Greetings, Ami Dar. Glad you could be here.
Hello, Tom. Good to be here.
Great to see you. Earlier today, I saw a post that you wrote that I thought was fantastic. And I just wanted to quote it here to get the conversation started. You wrote, "What's the big goal that most of us could agree on? Here's one possibility. Let's use all the tools we have now, plus our skills, our stories, and all of our accumulated experience to help people everywhere imagine, connect, and act. Imagine a better world, a better community, and a better life. Connect with others who may share our dreams and challenges, act on good intentions, and help others to act on theirs. If we can do that, everything else will get better." You have posted that you have some big plans for Idealist and your community in 2026 aimed at helping people do just that. So I'd love it if you could tell us more about those plans.
Yeah, I'll jump right to it. I think, as you said, I think in your intro, Idealist has been around for 30 years now, connecting people online to volunteer opportunities and to jobs in this world. I started because ever since I was a kid, I think I've been obsessed with this idea of how can we all do more together. This feeling that the world is full of resources. The idea that, if you see a pothole in New York in the street, it's not because New York is too poor to fix its potholes. There's something else going on. So how can we all do more together? And how can you release more, energy of people just getting together and doing good together, connecting for good? So there are many ways of doing that. And one thing we'd like to do this year, we noticed a few years ago that if you take any date in the U.S., any calendar date in the U.S., any date in the calendar, like 3/7 or 5/8 or 9/12 or whatever, in the U.S. 3/7 is March 7th, but in Britain, in Europe, in India, it's actually July 3rd. And the only days of the year where that's not true are 3/3, 4/4, 5/5, 6/6, right? Those 12 dates work all over the world. If I say, meet me on 8/8, the whole world knows what I mean, August 8th. So we're going to take those 12 days, 1/1 through 12/12. We're going to arbitrarily just call them Idealist Days. And we're going to say, on that day, you have the permission, the encouragement, the social permission to go to your neighbor's house, your new neighbor, and say, "Hey, welcome to the neighborhood. My name is Tom. It's great to see you. And today is a day in which we all do that." On that day, schools can invite parents to talk to the kids, and businesses can let the parents go and talk to the kids. And the mayor can close some streets to let people kid. And so this idea that by simply arbitrarily declaring that one day is a day in which we all do more together. One important thing to just note, it's not about, 12 days of service. It's once a month. Let's spark and celebrate more action for the whole month. Let's celebrate what we did. Let's suggest new things. Some things fit in a day. They can be done one day, but it's more of like, I'm going to raise my hand one day a month and say, why don't we, or who wants to? And the idea that if we have that kind of milestone, and that people, I think, very often welcome having an excuse, a milestone, a moment in which we all do something together, that will be a good thing to do. So we've been planning on this, iterating for a very long time. COVID sort of stopped us. We started again. And this year we're going hard. And so to even, answer your question in more detail, having iterated and spoken to many, many people, realized that even just saying, hey, how about once a month we do something good, that even that is not enough, that people sometimes want even like more specificity, at least to start. So on 5/5, May 5th this year, which is a Tuesday, we are going to be convening what we're calling a global community breakfast. We're saying basically all over the world, every day starts with some kind of breakfast, coffee, tea, whatever.
Right.
Let's have breakfast together in some sense. But breakfast, so it can be an excuse to meet some neighbors, or let's bring a speaker to a bunch of, colleagues, or let's go and actually paint something, build something, clean something, and then have breakfast, or let's go to a senior home and have breakfast with seniors or serve. But the idea of essentially, showing our shared humanity and at the same time nurturing, local connections by deciding with a few months to plan. And so right now we're looking for hosts and organizers all over the world. We're going to be leading by example by doing this thing I want to do for a long time. On 5/5 at 6 a.m., we're going to cross the Brooklyn Bridge together. Whoever wants to come to watch the
Wow.
sunrise from the Brooklyn Bridge, because why not? I think it's important if you're going to invite people to get involved in something that you have also an element of whimsy, of fun. That is not, how does crossing the Brooklyn Bridge change your world? Well, it doesn't, but it's cool, and I want to do it, and why not? So we haven't even promoted it yet, and there's already 120 people that have signed up to basically come in the morning of 5/5 and cross the Brooklyn Bridge from Brooklyn to New York to Manhattan, and let's have some coffee by Borough Hall. So yeah. So anyway, that
That's
the City
awesome.
Hall. So the idea basically is to invite people around the world to at least once a month do something to make their corner of the world a bit better.
And, uh, a couple thoughts on that. First of all, the Brooklyn Bridge event sounds wonderful. Look, we live in a social media world these days, and it's eminently postable and
Visual.
taggable. It's an Instagram event. I will post the links in the
Please.
show notes so that people can sign up. And I love the Brooklyn Bridge. It has incredible history, and just
Yeah.
we can get into some New York stuff later because we're both students of New York history. But larger scale, Idealist has the scale to be able to bring a lot of people and organizations and networks together. Tell us a little bit about how large the Idealist community is at this point.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I'll just give you an example. Yesterday, I was curious about something. I asked one of our data person to tell me to look back at this past year, 2025, and tell me which are the biggest 50 cities by the number of people who joined us, who signed up to be part of Idealist in that city for 50 cities. So the smallest one is 1,000 people over the last year, and so you get some crazy numbers. Just in one year, we had 30,000 new people in New York.
Wow.
12,000 in Chicago, and then 1,000 each in Kathmandu, in Cairo, 5,000 in Lagos, Nigeria, right? Lagos. And so the thing is that if you want to start something like this, and let's say that we want people to do something, on a bridge in Lagos that morning, not just a Brooklyn Bridge, if you suggest to 5,000 people, let's do something cool that day. We're doing this in New York. You should do something else too. You'll get 20 or 30 that'll say sure. I mean, out of 5,000, of course.
Yeah.
And that's enough to get something going. So I think we over the 30 years have built, and that's just one year. Like if you go back 2 or 3 years, there's 10,000 people in Lagos or Ghana or Buenos Aires or Sao Paulo. And so I think there's a broad audience all over the world, and I think there's enough to start. And of course, with anything like this that you would do in the world, all you can do is propose, and then people will take it or not.
Mhm.
And then the question is, does it grow from there? But I think we have more than enough to start. It's
Mhm.
funny you mentioned we met, Mamdani in New York, and how he talked about the fact that a year ago, this has crossed my mind, Tom, that a year ago he only had 1% name recognition in the city. We have more than that. Idealist has more than 1%
Right.
recognition in New York, right? So it doesn't mean that we can do what they did, but in terms of a starting point, we're in a very good starting point.
It's a terrific that I remember first becoming really aware of Mayor Mamdani, then Assemblyman Mamdani, when he did that polar bear swim in
Yep.
a full suit out at Coney Island. I was like,
Sure.
"Wow, this guy is really going for it." And so it was a stunt, but
Yep.
it brought some attention, and that he said what he wanted to say, and
Right.
it brought some attention to it.
Yeah, and so we're starting. So as almost like trying to start something different from what we've been known for in the past. So in New York, for example, our email mailing list in the city is, I think, 120,000 people in New
Yeah.
York, right? So as a starting point, now if 99% of the people on that list think you're nuts, but 1% want to do something cool with you, that's 1,000 people. I'll take that.
Yep.
That's a good place to start, and then you go from there. So we'll see.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
and so many of these people are already folks who have, an alignment with Idealists. They are either volunteering through you guys, they got a job through you, they're posting a job for
exactly.
their place of work, and because you've been around for years, it's not just like a new app or something.
Yeah,
A you're a trusted partner.
I
You're
hope so. Yeah,
part of people's lives.
yeah.
And, thinking about the breakfast thing around the world, it kind of reminds me a little bit of on New Year's Eve when it starts becoming the next year in different time zones. And
Exactly.
like you're going about your day and you're like, it's New Year's in such and such a place. And there are fireworks over there. And you're like, wait a minute, it's not even dark here. But,
No, it's a really good point on that when when you say breakfast, as people thought we meant, together. It's like, well, but it's nighttime here. No, no, we mean breakfast where you are. And so,
yeah,
we start with breakfast in New Zealand and we end with breakfast in Hawaii, 22 hours later. And yes, and the idea is, like this kind of thing where like, hey, you're invited
yep,
and, come and let's talk, etc.
I
And that's
love it.
so a friend designed this thing for me with like 20 different round foods around the world that people could use and just put a thing together. And so, but again, the idea of, why breakfast? Well, because A, we have it, why not? And B, again, the idea that it can be this plus much more, right? So it can be five neighbors, it can be 100 people in a town square, it can be a beach, it can be much more than that, whatever we want it to be, people. But
Right.
just, I think also to tie to something else, Tom, that we discussed, I think a few weeks ago, is that we live in a moment, I think,
Mhm.
that many people feel that we've been defeated so often in so many ways, however you want to define that word, that I think that finding an easy win that can also be celebratory. So I think that almost anyone can pull together 10 or 20 people and have breakfast. And if that can be meaningful because it's happening in 1,000 places and that can feel like a win without lots of arguments, without lots of, let's just make one good thing happen, please. And then we go from
Uh,
there and build on that. So I
yes,
think there's a need, I think, for some easy wins that are visual, that are fun, and then we can build on that. If we can actually pull off 1,000 events around the world in 100 countries that look different, that act different, then on that, you can then build more for the following month and the following month. But start with something that is obviously achievable. Like Tom, in your town, you can pull together 20 people and do something
right,
cool. Of course you can, right?
right.
If you can, so can she, and so can he, and so can she. And let's just do it. And then we'll see what happens. But let's just do one. And what's beautiful about this, by the way, is that I think that yes, it'd be wonderful if it happened in 1,000 places. You'll make it meaningful just for you. Like, in other words, you'll enjoy it. Like, why not? So she can enjoy it. And then together we can do something awesome. So, yeah.
Right. And to continue this line, I mean, these are pretty dark times. And I think a lot of people who work, broadly speaking, in the sector that is served by Idealist, or, that and civil society, or they are volunteers, so they're trying to do something good. As you say, we're facing s- almost daily horrible news, and it affects people. I talk to people every day, my clients, organizations that I work with, students, and it's so often, pretty much happens every day now. Somebody will say, "Can we just talk about what's going on? I need somebody
Of course.
to listen to me because
Of
I'm
course.
really feeling it," And
And I
these
think
are well-educated, strong, professional people, but it's taking a real toll.
what's happening now is taking a toll, and I think there's a cumulative effect. I think that in some way, this is, this can be debated by different people. I think in some way, we never celebrated the end of COVID. And of course, people can say, well, it never
Mm,
ended, it still goes on. I think it was very important that World War II had a VE Day and that it
it's a great
ended.
point.
And I think that we missed an opportunity. I think that at some point, this is my personal opinion, that at some point Biden should have sat in the White House, behind that desk, and he should have just like removed his mask and
Mm,
said, tomorrow we celebrate. And yes, of course, some people are still suffering, but I think that in some way, look, this office behind me is empty.
right,
It's been empty for 6 years. I mean, basically, people went home that week and sort of never came back. The landlord, we have a lease for another couple of years.
right.
Often we'll have three or four people here during the day when we used to have 30. And in some sense, when I'm sitting here during the day, because I come in every day, because I do that, I feel as if lockdown never ended. And anyone who runs events for a living will tell you that we sort of never recovered. It never really has come back. And so I think just getting out, just having a global celebratory moment and moments, I think is important. I think we need it. We all need it. Anyway, at least I need it.
That is a great point. And you're thinking about COVID, we're in 2026, and I remember the spring of 2020 like it was yesterday. And people would always talk about those couple of years there, how time itself became so difficult to track. People didn't know
Yep.
what day it was, what week it was. Everybody was working from home. And also, we sort of evolved out of it. And I also think some of the, uh, whatever you would call it, mass hysteria, craziness, some of the real fault lines in society came out of that period of time when large groups of people just kind of lost it and are now represented in our national government.
Yeah.
And so I think you make a great point. I think the sort of COVID hangover is definitely still with us from a cultural standpoint. Talk about civil society and where we are and about the threats. You know, we hear a lot of dire analysis of kind of where we are and the damage that has been done. And it certainly is significant, from killing off USAID to the Kennedy Center, to threatening nonprofits with their 501(c)(3) status, to pulling funding from major universities, et cetera, et cetera. What do you think how resilient are we? What do you think the threat level is to, broadly speaking, the social sector, nonprofit sector, as a leader in that and somebody who's probably been to as many conferences over the years as I have? How do you assess the current threat level?
Yeah. No, I'm honestly not a very big conference goer. I don't like
I
traveling.
stopped.
Yeah, I'm a bad hotel worker. I'm a bad airplane worker. I like to be at home. I like to be in the office. I think that look, it's been an extraordinarily challenging year for this sector. I think that it's funding has been tough. The threat level is there. Competition gets ugly between
Yeah,
organizations when this happens. Funders, I think, have felt sort of under siege. So it's tough. At the same time, I think that is so obviously around us that I try not to focus. In other words, if you even think about literally this podcast, right? Any of your listeners can go anywhere right now to get a whole bunch of bad news. And so I try to get myself to think about what we can actually do together. And I don't know, I'm like an inveterate optimist. I try to see, even with COVID, for example, I remember specific moments during the worst lockdown where actually good things came out, right? I remember this moment specifically, very specifically, this guy in northern India who was standing in the roof of his house and he said, I'm 50 years old, and because there are no cars and therefore there's no smoke, for the first time in my life, I can see the Himalayas 100 miles away, right?
mm,
And I think that feeling of possibility, of silence, of friendship, of I think that stayed with people as well. So I think there's the sort of the trauma of the epidemic, of the pandemic, but I think also this feeling that people had of a different world being possible, of neighbors saying hello across the street, of people, making music together on video, of
right,
even the way that Zoom actually has changed our lives in ways that are annoying, but also in ways that are positive,
right.
right? You can actually have a meeting with someone now. Had a meeting yesterday with some guy in DC who I didn't know. In half an hour, you can have a really effective meeting instead of having to take the train to DC and like.
Yes.
So that has been a good thing, right? So anyway, so this is I'm answering your question about I think yes, I think obviously things are not good in many different ways. I'm trying to also get myself to think about the good things that have happened over those years.
Yeah. There is some violence, obviously. And I think
Oh,
this idea of fear is just so prevalent. And
yeah.
honestly, we've seen fear at the level of major liberal institutions that we thought would stand against it and would not necessarily yield immediately
I think fear is
to
a
the
is a
threat.
very kind word, Tom. I think there's the number of cowards that we've seen for the last, sort of couple of years have been amazing to me. And I've had to think, and I know it's a hard word that somebody might take offense at. I've had to think a lot about why we haven't seen more people sort of speaking up or speaking out. I think that it comes down, this might be simplistic. I think it comes down to resume building. I think
I do.
that
I
in this
agree.
country, I'm sort of an exception in that I did not like school since I was a kid. So I dropped out of high school. I never went to college. So I'm basically a high school dropout that is doing this job, which is not very common. And so I'm sensitive to the fact that in so many jobs in this country, to be able to be the CEO, to be able to be the White House correspondent of a significant, sort of media entity, you have to have been a rule follower for most of your life. And so rule followers don't suddenly rebel. It's just the way it is. And so it's almost a biographical thing where basically the kind of person that rises to be university president is not someone who is used to misbehaving and challenging authority.
Mm.
You don't get that job by having been an authority challenger for 30 years. You get that job by having been the goody goody intern 25 years ago, and then you rose to this rank, right? And so that's where you are. You have basically a society where the more successful people in many situations have been rule followers, and so they follow the rules and they
Yep.
don't rebel, and they have a lot to lose and they don't want to lose it. Yeah.
Well, I think that's important. I also think even if the rules change, you're like, okay, these are just the new rules.
Yep.
I'll still have my life,
Exactly.
and what I'm doing, and I can order Uber Eats tonight if I want to, basically.
Yeah, and people, I'm not being a hero either. I'm just saying,
No,
it's
no,
basically you see people in, in law firms and university presidents who could have done more, mega billionaires. What's FU money for if you never tell anyone to,
100%.
right? I mean, right? So anyway, I don't know.
Or
Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but it is
well,
what.
it's okay. Or because these are some of some of these guys and women are the major philanthropists of our
Yeah,
time, and yet they beat a path to the Oval Office bearing gifts, literally of gold. It's just
you have
such
enough
a
money.
strange time.
You have enough money to, without even blinking, you can buy every billboard in the country and
Yeah,
say something. Like, come on,
yeah.
most of us don't. It's like
Yeah.
you can just
Well, Elon Musk did, but it was
yeah, exactly.
of course, he went the wrong way. Or as I call him, the world's worst philanthropist, because
Yeah.
he is the world's richest man and gives away the least amount of money.
Don't
Yeah, very, very, um,
wanna get depressive. Yeah. Anyway,
no, no, very difficult. So, can you know, ho ho I guess I'm still chasing the idea of kind of how do we turn it around? Is it in fact small groups of people who decide to stand up? I have gone to a lot of protests,
yep.
both in the first administration and this one. And, now I'm speaking to people who I see all the time at these protests. Honestly, most of them are our age or older. And it just feels like, well, I mean, it's great. It's a great thing to do. And I feel like it's an important thing to do. But I also feel like there's not gonna be much impact from that. And I know you are the eternal optimist, and the pebble in the pond may create greater waves down the line, but what do you think people can do who are watching this?
I I think protesting is great, and especially if that's what you wanna do. I prefer to not try to live our lives in reaction to what others do, right? So basically, someone does something in the morning, they do something, they get up in the morning, they do something, and then you protest against, as opposed to like, what do you want to do in the morning? I mean, what world do you want to create, regardless? And that's where I think this idea of, what do we want to do? What do we want to build? What do we want? And so I think, yes, I think sometimes protesting is the right thing to do.
Mhm.
And of course, I think voting is always the right thing to do, and people should absolutely vote, of course. But I think that defining what we want, and so saying, I want to know my neighbor, or build this thing, or mentor this kid, or change this law, or change this policy, or introduce a new policy in my city. So I think going forward and uniting with others and building something permanent and new. This is why this idea, for example, of a movement where people start getting together once a month. The idea is not just to get together once a month. The idea is to use that to build a whole ecosystem that will help people move from intention to action, respond to things, share ideas. Um, I think there's a whole civic layer that's missing out there in the world today that would make it easy for any two people who agree on something to go and act on that, as opposed to not even knowing that we're there. So I think I want to build that regardless of who's in government, regardless of what's going. I mean, they can do their thing. I can't really stop them. I'm just some dude who runs a nonprofit. I can't stop what powerful people are doing, but we can start our own thing, and try to, and also have more fun doing it. It's not really fun to be, to me, it's not fun to just be angry all the time.
Yeah.
Some people enjoy indignation. I don't really do. I would rather laugh and so it doesn't mean that I'm not pissed. I'm really, really angry a lot of the time,
Yeah.
but I don't like myself being angry. I'd
Yeah.
rather not be, and I'd rather be building something
It's a great
than
point. I mean,
reacting to what others are destroying.
I find that I'm the same. I'm the same way, but I feel like, and I love humor too. So I feel like when I'm really pissed off and angry, it affects the people like around me
Of
or I'm
course.
close to in a negative way. But when there's humor involved, it affects them in a more
Of
Oh,
course.
it's obvious, but it affects them in a more positive way. I just wanted to touch on the idea of volunteerism because I know you have added a
Yep.
huge voluntary aspect to the idealist universe over the past year or so. And I think it doesn't have to be people who are like in careers in the nonprofit sector who can get involved in this. You can join a board, you can just go volunteer at a soup kitchen. You can do a community cleanup or a community garden, that kind of thing. And those are, I think, legitimate ways to bring people together
Of
who
course.
are people of goodwill who might be able to help us get through these times.
Of course. I mean, volunteering is, and so many people do it without even calling it volunteering. One of the things that you see, I'm not a big fan of the word. I think that so many people help out
Right.
and do things, and they use either they don't use any word at all, they just say I'm helping out, or they use specialized words like, coaching little league or teaching Sunday school, or all which are
Yeah.
volunteer opportunities that have their own specific words. And you don't say, oh, I volunteer, coaching little
Good
league.
point.
You just do it, right? And so there's so much of that around us. And I think that, yeah, there can be more, but it's more about, what can we do also as groups? What can we do that has a bigger impact? But yeah, but every little thing makes a difference, and it's worth it.
And usually you get into those voluntary situations because somebody else asks you to do it.
Yeah.
So, there's already that human connection there. Before we go, I wanted to just talk a little bit about New York politics because we're both New Yorkers. And, we have a new administration. And I think Zohran Mamdani is a very interesting young politician who is bringing something different to to the largest city in the United States.
Yep.
And I just wanted to know, Ami, what your thoughts are about, New York right now and how his new administration may play into the future.
Well, well, a couple of things. One, it's obviously been fascinating, right? It's been fascinating to sit here for a year. I think that sometimes we're not good enough, not good at putting aside our opinions and just watching a phenomenon, right? So if you just watch this phenomenon, I think there's something incredibly cool, incredibly inspiring, like democracy at its best. About a 32-year-old kid who a year and a half ago gets up in a city like New York, looks around and says, I'm going to be the mayor of this thing.
Yeah.
And then goes and does it with words, not with guns, not with threats. He is now, leading New York as the mayor by having said and used and filmed a bunch of words. And he persuaded 1 million people to vote for him. That is amazing. And if someone, hates him enough that they can't even see how amazing that is and how worth fighting for that is anywhere in the world, I mean, that's just an amazing thing to do. So that I think has been really interesting to watch. Um, I'm sort of really fascinated by how young. So it's his appointed a bunch of older people to certain jobs and commissioners and stuff, but his core team. I'm sort of amazed by the youth. He's 34, and I don't know if you've been following this. He's the old guy. Like his chief of staff at 34.
Right. I know there's a bunch of
Yeah.
people in their
The
20s.
the press, yeah, yeah. I mean, his press, the he just brought in this woman from Bernie's to sort of run communications. 33. Her deputy is 25. His chief speechwriter is 29. So that's sort of fascinating, in its own way. And then I do hope it's only been 8 days.
Yeah.
I do hope that now that they won, they they're going to run again in 4 years. I get that, but they can. I hope that they devote more energy and time and words to uniting the city. In
Mm.
other words, I get it. 1 million people voted for me. A bunch of people hate me. Now I'm the mayor of all of you. And he said that in inauguration. I think that being more of a uniter and not continuing to sharpen certain differences, I think is going to be really, really important. It has to do with appointments, words, events. Um,
Yes,
to
because things will
really
come at him
say,
fast.
yeah, to really say, I'm everyone's mayor. My job now is to actually unite.
Hmm.
And then we can argue again 4 years from now. But for now, let's actually work together. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes. But it's
Yeah.
not boring. That's for
No,
sure.
no. I mean, I think it's the toughest elected job that there is, New York,
Yep.
and nobody has gone on from mayor to higher office since
Nope.
like 1870 or something.
Yep.
And it does come at you fast. It'll be,
Yep.
so much of it is reacting to what happens.
Yep.
I do agree that the uniting factor, we may not be his exact brand of political ideology, but I am certainly willing, it's close enough, and I'm willing to give him a chance, but I worry that if he leans in too much to the endless factional battles, that you lose the possibility of a more uniting administration. I think
I
it's
hope
been
so.
interesting. He's worked well with the governor who is from a different,
Yeah.
political stripe so far, and to me, that's one of the best signs so far, I think,
Yep.
that they're actually working together.
Yep. They seem to be, and I think again, it's not boring. We'll see what happens. I don't know. It's a long, you know, Tom, you and I are a certain age already. The idea that he could retire after 8 years of being mayor at 42 is let's just say humbling, right? For someone like
Oh my
us.
gosh. Yeah, I
Um,
mean,
right.
yeah, because
It's
when
also, I
I
mean, you mentioned this thing about no one having gone to higher office. I think he may not like it, but I think it's actually very liberating that
yeah,
he is not a born American, that he cannot be president. Is actually, it removes one huge distraction from the following 8 years, right? Maybe when he's done, he can go, be governor. Or I'm not sure that interested in him, or he can go be an appointed secretary. I think, he can run the UN. I don't know.
yeah,
But the fact that he can't be president, I think, removes, I think, in a good way for him, a huge distraction that would just be there with some of his fans. And so not having that, I think, is just healthy.
great point. Like,
Yeah.
this is the big job.
Yeah, that's the
So,
job. And so just
just
focus.
do it,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
maybe you'll do something else, but don't, let's not think about that yet.
Yep.
Yeah, very interesting.
Anyway.
Anyway, so just to close, Ami, do you have any advice for folks working in our sector, who may be feeling a little bit beaten down going into the early part of this year with everything that is going on?
Man, advice is such a loaded word. I would just say, you know, we can try to make ourselves feel better by doing certain things. There's that old thing that if you smile, you feel better. Just make yourself smile, you'll feel better.
Yeah,
I think in that same way, let's do some cool things together. Let's, come on, come and let's do something cool on 5-5 or 4-4 or 3-3. We're going to start
right.
having some planning meetings soon for all of this. Um, yeah, let's do some good things to make us feel better. I think, we can read or watch things that will make us feel bad all the time. I think let's go and do some things that will make us feel better and maybe end on that note.
I agree with you. And I would urge everybody to follow idealist.org and follow Ami for the updates on all of these wonderful
Thank you.
dates to
You can
come.
find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter. I think LinkedIn
There
is
you go.
days, and just come over to LinkedIn and let's connect there.
Awesome. Ami Dar, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Tom.